Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining. It's good to see some familiar names and some new names as well. So you're all very welcome. For those who I haven't met before, I'm Sarah McClellan. I'm a work psychologist and I lead Make It Human, a company focused on helping people like you build culture skills and with that shape happier, healthier, more human workplaces. And every couple of weeks, we get together in this session called Coffee and Culture. And really, it's quite an informal get together, and it focuses on one topic. And the topic today that we're going to explore is how to get started with culture change, which I think is a big one for most people. This is the thing that is probably the first stumbling block for all of us when it comes to shaping better cultures. So the format is that typically I'll talk for around 10 to 15 minutes and then I'll stop the recording and then we can open up and have a conversation if people want to dive in, ask questions, share experiences. It's really quite flexible in that sense. So the only rules are that you bring a cup of coffee or tea or whatever is your favorite beverage. It doesn't matter. It's not exclusively coffee, but we do talk culture. And yeah, cameras are optional. If you want to share things in the chat, then feel free to. It's entirely your choice. It's just meant to be an opportunity to dive into something practical around culture. So let's get started. So, as I said, our topic is how do we get started with culture change? And I'm sure this is something that you feel and experience all the time. So, look at any type of data about leaders and managers too around their top priorities, and culture will appear probably as number one, if not number two. This stat that I've pulled out says that 75% of leaders have improving culture as their top priority. So, it's something that is right up there and something that we want to do something about. We want to improve it. However, what happens is we often see this chasm, we see this gap in that the same piece of research shows that only around 50% of employees actually see that turn into any action. So, what's going on there? What's kind of preventing us from turning this, identifying a need to improve into something tangible? And I'm sure this will feel quite familiar. It certainly does to me when I think back to when I was leading and managing teams. I would often spot something that I want to improve, and it would be up there as a priority. But then I'd think, well, it's quite risky. Is this the right time? It's probably going to take a significant amount of time to see any improvement. So should I do it or shall I just stick and see if it improves? We also often think it has to come from the top. I've got to wait for the executive team, the CEO, to go first and really shape the direction. And then another challenge that I think we often feel is that we can't quite pinpoint it. It feels like this swirling mass around us, and we're not too sure how to really grasp that and turn it into something more tangible. Does that sound familiar for those joining us? Certainly does for me. Yeah, some nods. And I think if we dive in a little bit deeper, what we see is that we tend to get stuck in this cycle of inertia. So on the left-hand side, with the number one, you can see there that we have no issue in realizing there's something problematic. So typically it might be engagement has dropped, or I sense that productivity isn't where it needs to be. People aren't collaborating, or more people are leaving than would be the number or the level that we feel is healthy. So we have no issue in identifying that and saying, yes, I want to improve it. And what we tend to do, our instinct then is to go and get more data. Well, let's go and do some more surveys. Let's go and maybe talk to some people, or run some focus groups, or find some research and see what the outside can tell us about this. And unfortunately, very often, although sometimes that can help if it's structured, if it's systematic, if it's helping us move forward, more often than not, though, it leaves us feeling overloaded. We're overwhelmed. It then creates more complexity. And probably we say, oh, you know what, that's too hard to tackle. And we put it to one side. And unfortunately, what that means is that those initial issues that we've identified go from bad to worse. So the kind of dip in engagement probably dips further because people don't see a response. Things that are kind of bad behaviors or bad habits can start to turn toxic because they start to get legs, and people start to follow others, and we have bigger issues like burnout and toxicity to contend with. So this, I think, is what we get stuck in, and this is why we have this chasm that we struggle to cross in terms of desire to want to change and improve culture, and what we're able to do in reality. So what can we do about that? This is a big focus of the work that we're doing at Make It Human, and the conversations that I have a lot of the time with people like you across lots of different organizations are around this issue. So what we're trying to do is use some of those characteristics of culture and turn them into something tangible, something practical that we can do, so we can bridge that gap. So I will talk very shortly about the first one, so how we can use the dynamic nature of culture to actually identify a pivot moment to get started. For those who've joined before, or read or seen any of the stuff that we share, we talk quite a lot about using science to work out a recipe for success. So there are elements that we know work within cultures. And if we focus on those and keep monitoring those and nudging them in a positive direction, we know that they're going to improve. Science tells us they're going to have a positive impact. And we can also make it more tangible. There was a session, I think some in this group joined before, where we talked about the culture triangle. So the three aspects of culture that can help us see it and can help it become more tangible, more visible to us. So if you missed that one, you can catch up on that, and I'll show you where to grab all of that. And then, of course, culture is so powerful. It is the big thing that we point to when things go well. It's also the big thing that we point to when things don't go well. So building our skills, building our knowledge of what we need to do to nurture great growth cultures is a big focus of the work that we're doing. So let's dive in, and welcome to those who have just joined us. So in terms of being able to start culture change and sort of battle, or tackle some of those things that hold us back, I'm going to share two things. So the first one is thinking about pivot moments. So this is really about acknowledging and understanding that culture is dynamic. It swirls, it moves constantly. Each day there is a potential pivot moment where you can choose. You can choose to do what you've done before, or you can be more intentional and say, actually, what change could we take to help us move towards something healthier, something more proactive, something more sustainable? So here's some ideas around some of those pivot moments. And this really, comes from the fact that unfortunately we can't just press pause on our cultures and do a kind of system reboot and transform those. We can't do that yet. Maybe we will be able to at some point in the future. But what we can do is find these moments. So let me just talk you through a couple of those. So hiring for a new leader or manager. Very often what we do is we say, oh, okay, that person decided to leave. Do we need to replace them? Yes. Okay, let's have a look at the existing job description, use our same methods to hire a similar profile of person again. And we repeat the cycle. And that might be fine. But this is also a brilliant moment to say, actually, do we need something different? What are we seeing in our culture? Are there some different skills, different experiences that could help us step in a slightly different direction here? So that, I think, is a brilliant moment to pivot and decide intentionally to do something different. Things around how you communicate. So number 4, start of a new period. Very often you get a team together, you talk about what's gone well, what you're going to focus on next. And again, those can be moments where we get stuck in what we've always done. And this can be a great opportunity to say, actually, you know what, in our engagement survey, people have been telling us X, Y, Z, or I'm sensing that there isn't enough collaboration, there isn't enough dialogue. Let's do it in a different way. Let's mix it up. Let's bring in different voices, or let's try a different format so we can change some of those experiences of our culture. And then another one I'll just pull out, and number 6, they're celebrating success. So I remember seeing this several times in organizations I've worked in, where, you know, every quarter you would see salespeople stand up on stage and everyone would clap because they've hit their numbers. And you would see a kind of dejection in the rest of that audience because they knew that those people hadn't done that on their own. You know, there were many people involved, and that was grating. That was causing a bit of conflict, a bit of tension. So actually, in that organisation, we decided to also recognise teams and bring out the focus on actually who else was involved in this, how did they behave collectively to help achieve this result. So I think hopefully that gives you a sense. There are, you know, the complexity of culture and the dynamic nature of it means that it swirls and it moves all the time, but there are these moments that you can find and pick to pivot towards something else. And there's a nice little guide that we created that gives you a bit more insight into each of those pivot moments. There will be more. I'd love to hear if you've got ideas around other moments or other things that you've tried, but you can download that in the members area of our website. And then the second thing that I just wanted to quickly share is also these parts in our days, in our routines, the kind of habits that we have that can be moments where we adopt slightly poor habits. Meetings, for example, are a good example of this, and I'm sure you felt that. You know, the joining the recurring meeting where you go around the same loop, no one has anything new to say, it feels like a waste of time, but no one takes it out of the diary or changes it. Change it. Try something different. Ask the team. Or reduce the length of time, or take it out and see if you miss something and do you really need it. Things like putting in focus time within our diaries. That's something as individuals and as teams, you know, we can commit to doing. You know, I'm going to have 3 hours this day where I'm not going to have meetings because I end up working over the weekend to actually get my work done. Relationships as well, you know, making sure that we're prioritizing getting to know people, building relationships over the endless to-do list. There are small things every day, and particularly if you're in a leadership or management role, people are watching you and seeing what are you doing. And these, as well as those pivot moments, are the small things that, you know, we don't have to accept. This is just how it's done around here. You know, that's one of the most, I think, frustrating things that you hear is, well, why are you doing that? Well, it's just how we do it here. But we don't have to. We could shift some of these things, and it's starting to sort of reframe the culture change has to be big, it has to be transformation. Actually, if you start doing some of these small things, you start nudging towards something healthier, more sustainable. So I hope that's been a little bit of food for thought. I also mentioned that you can download both of those, the guide and the one pager. And that's because we've just built a brand new area in the website where you can, if you sign up for free, you can access a lot of this content. So we've kind of structured it so you can search by topic area, by problem that you're trying to tackle, and then you can get a whole range of on-demand resources. We're also building out some more kind of practical, hands-on, in-depth material that is comes via a premium club member. So that's a paid-for version, but there is still a lot that you can get for free. So go and check it out on our website under the members area. And that's it for this topic. And so just before I open up for conversations, reflections, and questions, we have got a little bit of a break before the next one. So they're normally every 2 weeks. The next one is in about 4 weeks' time. The reason being we're going to the Engagement Summit conference in London on the 22nd of May. So if anyone happens to be there, I know Bert's in Belgium, so that's probably a bit of a step, but you're very welcome, Bert, if you fancy popping over. But the next one will be 5th of June, and I think this will be a really good one. It's around how to shape moments that matter. So within teams, within communities, within organizations, we're going to examine some of the things that we can proactively do.